the successors of Bernie's who had passed before we started to put this collection together. Uh, so we looked for a successor uh, who would, one way, just to refresh, we had asked each of Bernie's successors, people he had given transmission or Inca uh, to share a story about Bernie that they used in teaching. Uh, so we asked uh, Eric Jitsudo's successor, who volunteered for this role, to share a Bernie story that he had heard from Jitsudo, uh, which is the case. The commentary is Eric's thought about it. It's not so much, it's not Jitsudo. So we'll just start with the case. If there's something people really want to get to in the commentary, we can go with that. But I think the case is worth staying with. Uh, will somebody read the case? You don't want to hear me read it. Good. Jerry.
I think I've been doing this mostly. Somebody else really ought to take a turn, but sure, making the right mistake, the case. I was discussing with Jitsudo a problem I had with a very dear friend and Dharma brother. We were very close for over 10 years, but suddenly, to my dismay, the relationship seemed over. We would meet for coffee and promise to get together again. It was always at my instigation and never reciprocated. Finally, I asked point blank if I had in some way offended him or disappointed him in some way. I told him that if I had, to please tell me, and I would apologize and do whatever it took to repair our friendship. He assured me that was not the case, yet to him the friendship was clearly over without saying as much. Jitsudo said to me, you know, Bernie would say, life is short. We have only so much time and energy. Once you give it your best shot, sometimes you have to let it go.
That was very Bernie. Uh, until we got this story, this was a little different. The story that I heard from Bernie, which I think was the same point, and was made a gigantic impression on me, uh, is he told us the story about the Mayazumi Institute. Uh, his teacher, Mayazumi Roshi, wanted there to be something like the great Buddhist universities of Japan in the United States as a training place. Uh, and he wanted Bernie to organize it. So when Bernie was still at ZCLA, and before Naropa existed. Uh, this was like, Mayazumi and Trungpa were very close, and they may have may have been competing in that moment for who could get the university going first. Trungpa actually won. But Bernie picked this up, as he did pretty much everything that Mayazumi asked him to do in those days, uh, and started to work to create this Mayazumi Institute. Uh, and he had even found someone to donate the property on which this institution of higher education, Buddhist higher education, was going to be located. Uh, and then he ran into all kinds of unanticipated obstacles. Uh, and he didn't go into the details with me anyway of what those obstacles had been. But what he said was, like even for the best ideas, sometimes the time and the conditions are not right. Uh, and I think that's the spirit of the story that Jitsudo shared about Bernie. Uh, and it doesn't actually mean that the times are never going to be right, that the conditions will never be there, but not now. Uh, and not to force it, to let it go. Doesn't matter how much we want it. Sometimes the universe is not aligned with what we want, no matter how noble. I think that's another version of the same story. How do you think about that? How do you work with that?
Well, in that case, the universe was definitely aligned with Trumpa.
Yes.
And Maizumi also had two very famous Chinese translators working with him. So you could understand that he probably thought he had the substance available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To me, the problem with this case is Eric is telling him about a conversation he has with a dear friend. The thing is that he doesn't know what's going on with the dear friend. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the problem sometimes with koans, uh, is they can be looked at in different ways. Uh, and there's no right answer. Uh, I can make up a backstory to make sense of Jitsudo's response to his student, in sharing the story uh, that I suspect that Jitsudo felt in that moment uh, that Eric had done what he could to kind of restore the relationship with his friend. Uh, and it wasn't happening in this moment. Uh, it, Sometimes you need to let it go and move on. Uh, it's not a the thing about this Zen business is it never gives us answers. it just gives us possibilities. We can always find a koan which points us in the opposite direction. Uh, how do you know when it's time to stick with it and time to let it go?
Yeah, jump in here. I'm walking to work, so I can't. The video is not going to be good for people. Boy, this is gold here. This is gold. That story is gold. Some of the stuff you just said, Ken, is gold. It's Barbara, I have to say that that's the beauty of this, is that we don't know what is going on in the mind of the other, and that's so typical. Like, it's rare that we get resolve in a relationship, and like what exactly is going on in the mind of the other. That's very rare, and that's great when we do, but this is more typical. We don't know. And he's asking point blank, and he even, to relate this to kind of like me, he's even like giving up some of himself in order to repair this relationship, or he's willing to. He's like, I'm willing to repair whatever it is. Tell me, I'll fix it. So he's almost giving, he's giving up some of his liberation here, or he's willing to, for this friendship. And it's almost like I see this friend is like liberating him. He's like, no, don't do that. We're good. And this is coming to an end. He doesn't say all that, but it's like, this is totally liberating, because this guy was willing to give up some of himself, no matter what it was. And I don't know. There's something about this. And then Ken, you just said Zen does not give us answers. That's true. But to the things there are answers to, like our awakened mind does give us those answers. Zen doesn't. Zen's not supposed to. That would be a religion. But with some things there are answers, not with all things. And we can get to those. Not through Zen, not through, like, Zen doesn't give us answers. We get the answers. That's kind of how I think things, or we have to admit we don't know. So that's
here's another twist. Another, we've met him before. One of Bernie's early successors, the Jesuit Roshi Bob Kennedy, and Bob had a recommendation to us at one point about how do you sound like a Zen master, and his secret to how to sound like a Zen master is, at the end of any statement you make, you add "or not." Uh, so, Joel, what I would add is just, like, sometimes our experiences of seeing things clearly, and we say, this is the way it is. But Kennedy says, add "or not." It's the way it is, or it's not.
Yeah, always leave room for the I don't know, because that really is the answer to everything in the absolute sense. I don't know. But we can choose certain truths.
Yes.
So choice is important, and there's certain truths that I can choose, knowing in the
Yes.
absolute realm, I don't know.
Yep. And we can, I can speculate that, you're building on Joel's insight, that Eric was offering to give up some of his self in order to try to save this relationship. I guess when I read it, up until up until then, I hadn't pictured it as a romantic relationship. But now I'm picturing it as a romantic relationship in which, when one person is ending the relationship and the other person doesn't want to end it, this offering to give up yourself, to give up pieces of yourself in order to try to preserve the relationship is is an enormously common experience. My guess is that most of us at some point in our lives have gone through this, trying to preserve a relationship that we didn't want to end. And there's huge suffering in that. That's, we're caught in attachment. And it's a very compassionate response then for Jitsudo to share this wisdom from Bernie, sometimes let it go.
I'd like to add that it's a turn of phrase. I want to make the right choice. And here I want to make the right mistake. It sounds like a Zen master or not.
Yes.
So I'm going to make the right mistake. And that's at the very heart of the heart and attitude of this story, I think.
Dale?
I had a few things I wanted to say, and I'll start by piggybacking off of Rob. I think my favorite quote in the world is Dogen's, "My life has been one mistake after another." So in any given moment, I believe that 99.9% of the time, I don't live in the absolute, I live in the relative. So I don't trust that my guidance is going to be 100% pure. And I believe that every choice that I make is conditioned by everything that's come before. So I have gone both ways. I have gone for it with a relationship. I've held back. I think the thing is, the conclusion I've come to is I can't make a mistake as long as I'm willing to learn from whichever way I go, whatever decision I make. If I'm open to getting the feedback from the universe, from that person, I'll learn from it. So it can't be a mistake. So, two fairly quick stories. I had two sisters. One died a few years ago. My older sister, she was 2.5 years older. But I have a sister 10 years younger who I've been very close with from the day she was born. We were born one day and 10 years apart. So we have a lot in common that way. She actually came to Rochester. Anyway, she said some very hurtful things to me, and in public, in my 60th birthday party with my best friends. And I didn't say anything about it. She twice in that event. And then a couple of years later on my birthday again. And I said to her, I'm tired of you saying hurtful things to me. Either you take responsibility for it and do something about it, see where it's coming from in you, or I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. And she was into Byron Katie at the time. And her response was, "Oh, Dale, no one can really hurt you." Well, it's true if I'm fully enlightened, but I still have an ego that gets hurt. And I want you to be sensitive to it. So I said, "Fuck you," and I hung up, and I didn't talk to her for 5 years. After 5 years of working with it, I finally got to the place of, I don't care whether you love me or not. I love you. I want to have a relationship with you. Now we're close friends. I've gone the other way. I had my best friend from Detroit, from high school, college, grad school. I said something to him that I thought was hurtful. And I asked him, and he said, no, no. But he really cut off contact with me. And I thought he wasn't honest with me. I really did hurt him. Well, he just died a few weeks ago. I found out that that's why he didn't respond. It wasn't what I said to him. It's that he was going into another realm. So, you don't know. One more quick story. This
No,
Native American.
wait. Give some other people a chance. Come on,
No, this other story is.
no. Give some other people a chance.
Okay, I'm done.
Jerry?
So my reaction was, Ken, what you were saying about letting go of a romantic relationship. And since my divorce, my life is kind of a series of failed relationships with women. But what I came to, fairly recently was that trying to salvage a relationship that the other person has, declared over is causing more suffering for both of us. And that it really was best just to let it go, wish them well, and move on. And so this kind of need or grasping for something to continue was just, the wrong thing for me, I guess is the way to say it, and causing more hurt for the other person who clearly was done with the whole business. So that's all I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I'd like to share something. I came in a couple of minutes late, but I did get the gist of it about letting go. I don't, to put it in context for me, I don't prioritize romantic relationships over friendships. They're both of equal value to me. But recently I did let go of two possible friendships because I wanted to be, and they were friends in relationship, and it was one way. And I tried, and letting it go. I didn't make a big announcement about it, but I was looking to be in relationship. So it doesn't work when it's just one person.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as it was painful, I realized I felt more alone being with this person. And I was looking for to be in connection with another, not perfectly, not, imperfectly, but there was no, I, I was not able to be in relationship with this other person.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was painful, but I mean, I don't feel alone. I don't feel lonely when I'm alone. And I felt lonely when I was with this person. Doesn't make them a bad person. Um, anyway, so that's how it is. And
Letting go
I could use a friend, but anyway, that's it. I don't want to say too much.
and letting go is an interesting koan, Uh, did you all know?
Releasing, surrendering,
Yes.
opening to whatever for me is
You all know
in that moment.
you all do you all know the koan about the two monks who come upon this beautiful courtesan on the riverbank, uh, and she's trying to figure out how to get across the river without getting her skirts wet. You know the story? One of the monks carries her across, uh, and puts her down, and the monks go on their way. About an hour later, monk number two is boiling over. Says, "How could you have thrown away your vows so easily, carrying a woman, touching a woman. And the first monk says to him, I put her down an hour ago. You're still carrying her around. Letting go it's tricky business. When I was younger, people people, my peers used to do things like move to California in order to kind of escape their families. But of course their families went with them, in their head, right? What is letting go? Dale, I suspect it's not saying fuck you and hanging up.
No, it's saying, I don't know what I know.
No, not quite.
Yeah, it's letting go of attachment to your beliefs, not making them sacred cows.
No, but that's an abstraction.
Okay, letting go is letting everything be exactly what it is without making something of it.
Yeah, there's a couple ways to get to the same place. I was trying to let go of stuff and it wasn't going anywhere. And so I just embraced everything, like all of my identities, all the stuff that had happened to me, just embraced it. And then what ended up being let go was something didn't even, I was like, oh, that's what was supposed to be released. And I had no idea. And it was something I totally didn't expect. So there's a couple different ways to do it. Embracing for me was the way to access that.
Often, in my experience, the resistance to letting go is not wanting to experience the loss. I'm willing. It's like I'll make a deal. I'll let go if it's like an erasure. But if letting go means I got to walk around with this person doesn't like me anymore, I'd rather keep fighting. That's where it's a lot of my energy to keep fighting in the past to keep a relationship going or a project. I was amazed. Bernie, when he came back to Montague, he had left Grayston. Jishu had died. He'd remarried after, spent a couple of years in California. He comes back and he gets involved in this new project. Like it looked like he was going to do Grayston again. Working with the sheriff of Springfield. The sheriff, and turns out, is the person who runs the county jail. And was struggling with, I guess, a big recidivism problem. He had a great jail, big, very successful jail. And other counties nearby contracted with Springfield to provide their jail service. And he had some really great programs going on. He had he was aware that a lot of the young people who ended up in jail, it's a lot of young people, and they end up in jail because, the time they're sentenced for is not serious enough time to warrant state prison. So they're in jail. And they don't have any discipline. So he developed this volunteer program, which I thought was fantastic, which he called a boot camp. And if you were in jail, you could volunteer to be in the boot camp. And he hired a bunch of prison guards who were retired military, drill sergeant types, Muyo, to run this boot camp. And it was like Paris Island. It was a life-changing experience, except it didn't really fix the recidivism problem. And Bernie and the sheriff were hatching this plan that Bernie was going to create some Grayston-like network in the community to support people when they came out of jail and changing their lives. And it was really exciting to me that he was doing this. And it was, the idea that he might be able to do this twice, do this incredible social action, social change program at Grayston, and then leave Grayston and turn around and do it again. I'd never heard of anything like it. It's like Steve Jobs type stuff, Uh, at the time or conditions weren't right. Different people who were around have different theories about what made it the wrong time and the wrong place or whatever. And Bernie let the plan go. He just let it go. He was sorry, I guess. He went on. There's an important teaching in that. Letting go. How do you let go?
For me, resistance is part of the process.
Say that again. Sorry.
For me, resistance is part of the process.
Mm-hmm. How do you work
with
that?
Everything that arises from any action or non-action.
That's interesting.
I guess for me, there's a balance between agency and surrender. Agency is recognizing what is in my hands, and surrender is recognizing what is not in my hands.
Yes. It's like the serenity prayer, right?
Please don't bring up 12 step.
No, you don't like that. Bernie liked 12 steps. Bernie liked to say that we may have come across this already, but Bernie was fond of talking about our addictions to our ego, to ourself. Yeah, Joan Halifax talked about that, right? In her story. And we never know for sure. But there is this experience I like we built this network of charter schools on Staten Island, and repeatedly had this experience that when something was needed, and we didn't know how we were going to deal with it, the universe came through. Whatever it was. And I had a feeling as that was happening, I mean, it looked like we were doing something brilliant. I mean, we were just going with the flow. But I think, Jenny, maybe it's the opposite of resistance. Maybe resistance is the opposite. That when we're coming up against resistance,
Well, it's recognizing it, that exists in that moment for me. Unacceptance is part of my process. If I don't recognize it, if I don't see that this is what's happening in this moment, there's no, I mean, there still is movement, whether I accept it or not. So that's from my perspective, so.
yeah.
It's not always all equanimity. I can go kicking and screaming. That's in some moment, like when I was 5 years old, I do it in certain ways as an adult. And then my process is to gradually, eventually, not all the time, is to surrender, open up to, allow. Now it's a little more about opening up to whatever exists in that moment. So it's all part of the mess, is all part of it. For me.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for enlightenment.
I've got a story. My friend a couple of weekends ago, he and his wife were moving and getting their house ready for the realtor, and he had 4 cords of wood, split wood in his driveway. And getting his house ready, he had no time to stack that wood. So I said, "I'll help you," and I organized a couple of friends, and we came over. So there's 4 cords of wood. And immediately my resistance came up and said, "I don't want to do this. When are we going to get this? How am I going to get through this? When is this going to end?" Those kinds of things. So something in me shifted and said, "Oh, it's just one log that you're going to do." So, we stack one log at a time. Once I'd let go of all 4 cords of wood, and I was just stacking one log, then that log I would put in, and there'd be another one, and I'd stack just that one. And so long as I was just doing that, I was completely free. So, it's stack wood. That's the Koan.
Mm-hmm.
And what Bernie used to say, to sound like a Zen master, he'd say, "That's just my opinion, man."
Yep.
Instead of "or not." But that's how I come at this conversation of letting go. Usually when there's resistance, is I'm looking at the end and the goal or something to get through, and I don't want to go there. So I just stack one log at a time. I hope that's helpful. But just my opinion.
Jerry?
So I don't know if this was what was Bernie was dealing with when he was maybe starting Greyston too, but what I can say for me is that at my age, I'm a lot less inclined to take on, major new tasks, uh, partly out of fatigue and just partly out of, the realization that, maybe things aren't as urgent as I used to think they were. So uh, I don't know if that's wisdom, but it's certainly age.
Bernie wasn't. Bernie was finally slowed down by his body. He had a stroke, which he had a hard time and never fully recovered from. And then on top of that, he got the cancer, which eventually killed him. But up until his body started screaming no, uh, Bernie didn't sort of see that sort of limit. So uh, not too long before he got started with the sheriff, uh, which probably seemed like small potatoes in a way. Uh, he had been meeting with Richard Gere. So they thought together, certainly Gere thought together they could bring peace to the Middle East. And Bernie was in, uh, they were going to try and do it. And I don't remember why the plan fell apart. But Gere was very enthusiastic. Gere told Bernie, I have money karma and publicity karma, and you have get it done karma. Together we can do this. And Bernie was going to give it a try. Uh, so this was another, probably part of the thing for Bernie was that sentient beings, there was a lot of them, and they all needed freeing, He's going to do it one at a time, like stacking wood, right? But as we get older, certainly up for me, like different thought processes go on, it's like, am I going to live long enough to finish this wood stack? The question didn't come up. That wasn't the question that came up when I was 30 years old.
Why finish the stack?
Say that again?
Why is there a need to finish the stack of wood?
Because all those pieces of wood want to be stacked. In compassion for the pieces of wood, it says, we make pieces of wood are infinite. I vow to stack them, Uh, the that's the absolute relative thing. Can you allow yourself to commit to the undoable? Doesn't mean that you're irrational. It doesn't mean that uh, You want to get COVID vaccine to every person in the world? How are you going to do it? And do you have to deny that you probably can't, on the one hand, in order to try to do it on the other? Can you hold those two things at the same time?
For me, it's about doing what I can whenever I can in each moment with no end goal. Although, of course, in life, in everyday life, I set goals, I pre-plan and all that. But for me, I don't have to complete the stack. In this moment, what can I hold this moment and let each moment unfold and do what I can in every moment for as long as I'm able to? And that's just my viewpoint.
Yeah, that's nice. I guess the test question is, do you feel the joy? If you feel the joy, it's probably working. If you don't feel the joy, something's missing.
That's a great test. I like that a lot.
Doing that for me is joy.
Good.
It took an awful lot of years for Bernie to say, it's just my opinion, man. It took an awful lot of years to get to that space.
Yep. Yeah, which doesn't mean that you give up opinions. Acknowledging that it's an opinion is not a denigration of opinion. Bernie had very strong opinions. Some people might even have described him as opinionated. And he would laugh. The people who aren't opinionated, it's because they think they're right. He's just doing what he believed.
To me, his life was in response to what appeared in front of him.
Yeah. But that's also like a tricky sentence. So like when Richard Gere comes to Bernie and says, we should make peace in the Middle East, Bernie could have responded by saying, I got a lot of work to do right here, right in my backyard. I don't need to worry about the Middle East. It's like we never eliminate the dilemma, at least in my experience, my opinion. The dilemma is always there. So if we say we're going to do what's right in front of us, we still have the problem of deciding what it is that's right in front of us. What's right in front of us? Rob decided that his friend's firewood was right in front of him, but he could have decided, no, that's in front of my friend. I got my own firewood to pile. How do you decide what's right in front of you? Are you
You
smiling?
decide.
Go ahead, Joel.
Just like this, how do you decide what's right in front of you? Like this whole idea of deciding what to do. The thinking mind can just like go back and forth and contemplate, try and factor in everything and estimate, but the awakened mind just pays attention, and the right thing to do is it can factor in all of the millions of factors that are going on in the present moment, and it's there. I mean that used to just torture me. God, what's the right thing to do? And I would like write pro con lists. I would ask everyone. I would like try and estimate and develop a probability model. The thinking mind, it was just it can't get it. It can't get at what is the right decision. But the awakened mind, boom, boom, it's right there. I don't know if that's called intuition. I don't know. I just call it the awakened mind can see all of the millions of factors of emptiness. Because the context of the present moment is only in the present moment.
Yeah, but how do you know?
Man. Fucking know, man. It's
Here's the
you know.
For me anyway. How do you tell subjectively what's awakened and what's deluded?
Okay, here's actually the real answer. You don't know, but you just choose to make that the right answer. You just, what if I say like, oh, the awakened mind is telling me this, I just make that the right answer no matter what. And that's by owning all of it. And then if it turns out to be a disaster, I think someone said this, I think Dale was saying this, you can't make a mistake. You just own everything, and there is no mistake.
It's a great segue to make your best mistake.
So Bernie says there is no objective reality. It's all just opinion.
No.
That's a quote.
There is objective reality.
Well, that's where I have a problem with that statement.
What we know is opinion. The Koan, there's a wonderful Koan about that, where the monk thinks he's got it. He's in the absolute. I'm one with everything. It's all my mind. And he's walking with the teacher, and they're, in their old Chinese sandals. And the teacher tells him to kick the rock. And he gives this rock a kick, with essentially a bare foot, and screams in pain. There is an objective reality.
I strongly disagree that relative reality is absolute reality. And once you realize there is no objective reality, that's the realization of that to me. Like, who's got access to this objective reality? Where is it? Who's got it?
The monk's foot. This there's an objective reality sometimes. You know, we don't, it's hard to see and impossible maybe to describe. And we are often deluded and not really seeing what's there, but it doesn't mean there's nothing there.
Can I tell a brief story about seeing Bernie the last time?
Yeah, sure.
I was visiting, and Eve she was quite concerned about the fact that Bernie would be crying all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden he'd be laughing. Now, I'm a nurse, so I'm explaining to her, but really to Bernie, when you have a brain injury, you get short circuits in your brain, and you will have changes in mood with obvious expression, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a short circuit. That's a damn well objective reality, which was right in front of me. But Bernie's response was that, so crying, so laughing.
You know, there's this.
Could you repeat his response? I missed that. Again, didn't come through clear for me. Thank you.
So I'm crying, so I'm laughing.
Thank you.
So there's this incredible thing that I look at outside my window. Before I name it a tree, it's an objective reality. The moment that I think of it as a tree, it's no longer, it's a thing. It's a mental concept. So there is an objective reality before I make something of it. If I don't make it a tree, it's just, wow, incredible.
So I wrestle with this in the political winds we're dealing with right now, where I'll get on social media to my embarrassment and see that there's this other universe where people have a different objective reality than the one I am familiar with. And if I only stayed in that one Twitter space, I would be caught to believe in this whole contradictory way of looking at things than the one that I know otherwise. So I've gone back and forth at trying to question my own beliefs. What is opinion and what is objective reality? And I certainly question it on the other side. So that's kind of where I had this issue with that thing from Bernie about there is no objective reality. And if you have a better explanation of that, I would love to hear it. Ken.
I don't think that Bernie said there's no objective reality.
I'll look it up for you, but pretty sure. Yeah. Maybe I don't remember the context. Maybe I missed.
No, you don't. I just tried to explain to you what objective reality would be. So I'm crying, so I'm laughing.
That's reality.
I mean,
right?
it doesn't matter if Bernie said it or not. Like this
Right,
is
that's
something
true.
for us to determine.
Yes.
This also doesn't matter, but it does say it in the Heart Sutra. Not that that is any more valid than Bernie, but isn't like that's what it's saying in the Heart Sutra as well. But that still doesn't matter.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Or not, right?
Or not.
You know, uh, interpretations, restatings of the Heart Sutra are not facts, right? They're opinions.
No, the Heart Sutra as a whole is one person's experience written down, or no, but multiple people's experience written down. It's still not fact. No. Like once you have the experience, it's different than the teaching.
Yes, I would say that. I mean, that sounds like I I like to say, the finger is pointing at the moon is not the moon, right? The finger pointing at the moon is different than the moon.
Oh yeah, that is what that is. I never understood what the fuck they were talking about, but that's what it is. Yeah, because the conceptual realm doesn't get at it, right?
Uh,
Whatever you read and whatever you think you understand, it's different than when you have the experience. I guess that is the same thing, huh?
so the
Okay.
Heart Sutra is a finger pointing at the moon.
I just want to add something. As you probably have done your own research, the way our brains work neurologically, right? We need to rely on mental constructs to function, right? Because we can't, it has to make some discretionary, all the data coming in. So I'm going to go out my door, I'm going to go down my steps, I'm going to go across the street. Someone is throwing a ball, right? I can't be totally in the moment. I rely, that's how the brain works in neuroscience, that it creates mental constructs. So it approximates, how far, when the ball is coming like to my mitt, right? So, I cannot escape that if I want to function in everyday reality, crossing the street, not getting hit by a car. So I'm walking a line, this fine razor's edge, right? Between being awake and being asleep. At least that's just how I'm viewing it. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, so we need both.
Mm-hmm.
We need both. Otherwise, I mean, and whatever Buddhism is, it doesn't. I don't want to get into a whole thing because there's so many interpretations of that, but it means functioning in everyday life. So anyway, just wanted to throw that in. That's all.
And we're all always functioning in everyday life. Uh, uh, I, I think Ram Dass was a friend of Bernie's, wrote a book that he called Be Here Now. Bernie wanted to do a Zen book. He was going to title it Don't Be Here Now. Uh,
Wait, can you expand on that, Ken? What's
how
why?
can
Just to
you,
be iconoclastic? Just to
how,
be
how
anti Ram Dass?
no, it's try not to be here now. Ram Dass presents it as a call to be present. Bernie says we're present, whether we're paying attention or not. We can be, quote, living in the past, fighting old battles, and we're still living in the present. We can be fantasizing about the future. We're still living in the present. That's just the way we're living in the present. We can't be anywhere other than here now.
So it's a challenge. He's like, try it, try and not be here now. It's impossible. Like that's what he's.
what I take out of it, and what I take maybe in this sense as a point of Buddhism, Zen practice, whatever, is how do we live here now? How to be here now that increases joy, reduces suffering for ourselves and others.
Can you remind me, is Ram Dass a Hindu?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not a Ram Dass expert. Uh, I guess, yes. Although I guess Hinduism is more varied than Buddhism, much older and much more varied, and probably to say that somebody is a Hindu uh, probably tells you almost nothing about what they believe or practice. I've got to pause for a minute, being an old man, to run to the men's room. I'll be right back. You guys can keep talking. I'll rejoin you.
I asked that about Ram Dass because it's like Bernie, when there's something brief and to say, it would always be, completely opposite what somebody else says, because it's, again, the other side of the same coin.
So I just sent the quote in the chat. I'm sorry to talk behind Ken's back about it. But that's the exact quote from Bernie. I forget where it came from, but he says, "In my opinion, there is no objective reality," which is funny. In my opinion, there's no objective reality. When we think there are objective reality, we go to war. So that was the rest of the quote.
I came to the conclusion in the discussion we were having about that it's a matter of semantics. Like when you talk about the conservatives and the liberals each thinking they have the objective reality, they're talking about their created reality. Objective reality, I used to say just this. That's objective reality. Just what's happening here and now, just this. And then I started working with a teacher whose teacher dropped the this, just. Because this has an opposite, that, right? Just. That's reality, objective reality.
Yeah. So.
7 faces. 7 faces. I keep coming back to this guy who really lost his friend. I feel a little bad for the guy, because there's nothing you can do about things that change, and hurt you badly, and you think you can fix it, and this just can't happen. And to me, it's like, but it's not a mistake. It was just what happened. It was just about that.
Ken, welcome back. I just wanted to mention I did put the quote in the chat if you want to look at it from Bernie.
So does this change things since we know that Bernie said this? I mean, what does that increase the value of this statement or what?
Well, this is a discussion on the Bernie Koan, so.
Ken, here, I'll say this before Ken gets back real quick.
He's back.
Oh, Ken's back. Never mind.
I don't see anything in the chat. What's the quote?
Let me say, Bernie, in my opinion, there is no objective reality. When we think there are objective reality, we go to war.
I'm sorry. As another older person with an enlarged prostate, I have an objective reality of needing to pee more often. It's not an opinion. It's not a subjective. I wake up in the middle of the night now 3 times or whatever. I have to pee. To me, that's objective reality.
So my guess here, Jerry, and I don't know the context in which Bernie is speaking.
I don't remember it either.
But, so if but from the little bit that you read there, I think he's talking about war, and conflict, and still it's tricky when it comes to David's point. I think our, public, at least one public affairs version of the prostate is global warming. And on the one hand, there are a lot of different opinions about whether global warming exists, and if it does, how dangerous is it? And Bernie's warning in the statement that Jerry quotes, as I remember Bernie, and I don't remember the particular moment, is that he's warning us against going to war over our opinions about global warming. But I don't think that means at all that Bernie is agreeing that global warming doesn't exist. That's one of the opinions. And the fact that there's this difference of opinion doesn't alter the fact that there is or there isn't global warming. Our opinions about it, unless we act on them, or however we act on them, may have some impact on global warming, but don't determine the fact. And the question is,
I mean, for the people who don't, go ahead, Ken.
no, I stopped. I was waiting for you. Go ahead.
I'm going to use the same demographic as an example, which are Christian. My friend who's a Christian. Let's use one person, not to lump a whole group of people. For him, Jesus is very real, absolute truth. And for him, global warming is definitely not happening. And that's his truth. Like, if you believe it, it's true. And so his absolute reality is relative to me. And same with mine. So it's for him, it definitely is not happening because he just doesn't, whether it's denial or what.
So in my opinion, that ain't Zen. That doesn't mean that my opinion is right, or if I'm right about Zen, that Zen is right. And maybe there is no reality other than what different people think reality is. And I don't know what that means. at the time when everybody thought the earth was flat, maybe it was. And maybe it didn't, the earth didn't become a globe until people's opinions about it changed. And maybe it's still flat. And just we all think it's a globe now.
For me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll wait until you finish. I wanted to add something.
I just wanted to say that's not my opinion. That's all. I have a different opinion.
For me, and I use instead of why, for me, a question that I have for myself is, why am I so attached to my opinions? What does that say about?
Good.
So I'm not looking for an answer. I mean, you could, anybody could chime in, of course. I mean, you don't need my permission. But for me, is to sit with that. Why am I so attached to my viewpoints or my opinions?
Here's another wrinkle, is drop the why. And just become intimate with the attachment. Befriend the attachment.
Yeah, I mean, I see that as useful. But for me, I like to contemplate things. So I want to, of course, dropping the why. I'm attached. This is what's going on now. But for me, what I find personally helpful is what is behind my attachment. And I like to contemplate, I use contemplation as well.
Yes.
Doesn't mean everybody else has to, but that's what's relevant for me.
I love that. I like to use images of demons and dragons. That I'd like to get to know what's hiding in my attachment. And that's not that I don't want to be attached. Bernie was suffered terribly when Jishu passed. And a number of people challenged him, thought you were supposed to be, you're a Zen master. I thought you were supposed to be free of attachment.
I'm in what you just said, Ken. I know there's a difference here, but I know when my partner died, for me, there was a period of grief. There still is, in a sense. I can call that up. There's sadness. I think with war, so much of it we enact war over beliefs, over all these subjective things. But when a child's legs are blown off, that's objective reality.
Yes.
And there's been a shift in that person's life and the family life. And so going back to Bernie's loss and challenge, for me, he was embracing the experience. He was embracing what happened, which includes sadness and grief. What's wrong with that? And if I don't want enlightenment, maybe because I don't know actually what it is, but I don't want it if if in a sense I'm not going to feel sad when I'm sad or grieve when I grieve.
So help me. How is the what's the difference between what you're describing and the situation with the child's legs being blown off?
I think there's a moment, I'm guessing, I know for myself when Monica died, that there is an objective experience, there's an objective reality, whether it's your partner physically is no longer there or a leg is blown off, that there is an objective reality that's, I'm not quarreling with it. There's nothing wrong with the presence of something that is very objective. I can't say, oh, it's a delusion, your leg's been blown off. No, it's not a delusion. How it's dealt with and how the family and the child deal with it, that's another story. When a partner dies, there's an objective encounter. How you deal with it, that's another story. Does that make the connection?
Mm-hmm.
To me, whenever Bernie made noise out of his mouth of thought processes, it was related to what was happening in front of him. So to take it out of context, to try to adjust what we're perceiving with those statements isn't relative. The pain of what we see on TV every day is pretty damn relative to this way of understanding the suffering we're in.
Well, for sure, we don't see objective reality on TV, in my opinion. You know, we're presented with somebody's version of reality. And it's charmingly, in a way, clearer now that when it was when I was a child, or growing up, when there were just these three major networks who basically all reported the same news, and it was easy to think that what we were getting on TV was objective reality. Now, when they turn on their TV, consciously picks their objective reality. Am I going to CNN or am I going to Fox? Clearly, to an outsider like me who doesn't watch much news, there's no objective reality there. People are choosing their reality. But that doesn't mean nothing's happening out there.
We all know who the greatest modern teacher of this is. Well, for me, I think Jerry might have been alluding to this, is Trump. Trump has been the teacher for me on this objective reality, subjective truth. Like, what is truth? And I say Trump, I mean Donald, not Chogyam. But like, he's been really a brilliant teacher, probably unintentionally, and like, yeah, what the fuck is truth? Like, I'm sure, I fully believe the excitement, the energy, that creates the truth. Like, this is the greatest rally ever. Because
Joel, I think we lost you.
I'm gonna take advantage of Joel getting lost in the ether to share the last word. This is from my childhood in sociology. Long time ago, I got a doctorate in sociology, and there was an early American sociologist, W.I. Thomas, who was famous for having said that what people believe to be real and true is real and true in its social consequences. Yes, what people believe is true and then they act on it, that creates a reality. If people say that there is no global warming and act as if there's no global warming, that's a reality. I don't know that that means that there is no reality going on in the upper atmosphere. On the other hand, as another example, if people deny the Holocaust, agree to act as if the Holocaust didn't happen, that's real. Does it mean the Holocaust didn't happen? If we all agree, does it change the past? I don't think so. My opinion.
You're getting very philosophical here today.
And I'd like to let you have the last word, but I have to clarify that quote from Bernie. He was apparently quoting the dude in The Big Lebowski.
Okay, so it comes from a movie.
That's right. That's right.
He liked the movie.
Yeah.
And he and Jeff became good friends.
Yeah.
Not this Jeff, the other Jeff.
Yeah.
I think time is up. This Jeff is here and we're wrapping up. 2 weeks, Jeff?
Yes, 2 weeks. Same Zoom link, same time.
Oh, let me just take a look and tell you what the next koan is, just so everybody's on the same page. Janet Richardson.
Unless things shift, I won't be here next time. I have a precious dental appointment that I couldn't finagle a change. So
good luck with that.
thank you.